Really?
Like bees to honey.
This is what you call a police state.
The cops claim they're finishing.
Gladys has resigned. We're celebrating.
Democracy manifest. Maybe they're delivering the evidence. Very embarrassing. Hey, what happened to the drug test? Come here, you didn't answer the question.
Stand up.
We should measure. Come here, please.
G'day, sweetheart.
Don't vote for Liberal, Labor or Green.
What's the question exactly?
As you can see behind me, we have another customer.
You're wasting police resources.
Legal, unethical, immoral, unprofessional behaviour.
There's evidence. Because you walked, eh? Why would a police hide, you know? Look at him. Look how he's hiding. He thinks he's Where's Wally? Look at him.
You just ripped it out on camera.
Skiing mostly.
Let's talk, buddy. Yeah, let's get one. Are you the same one as yesterday? So guys, we've got AFP on the scene. I am going, why can't we borrow it, to a direction,
Can't listen to this stuff without having a beer.
an area which is lawful to attend an essential reason. But you're foraging.
Foraging for the fruit of the land.
That doesn't make any sense.
Why didn't you check this one?
You always look stressed when you see me, man.
And these poor kids just came out of academy in Goulburn.
We are not marching to Parliament. We are marching on Parliament.
Being sung loudly and proudly today in the streets of Sydney.
Don't be shy. Channel 7 or Channel 9?
Well, here you go. How about that?
Enjoying the diesel engine of a Land Cruiser.
You know what, the Electoral Commission would just love that piece of me.
Can you not interrupt the search, mate?
Old fella alone has been a good
Every time the cops try and do this, they lose.
Look after women and children. What has he found?
I'm under arrest.
I already told you.
I was followed by High Patrol the whole way there and back.
I'm playing the Aussie card, the freedom of speech card.
Welcome to fascist country Australia. Here's another one joining the party.
We're all being oppressed. We're all being intimidated.
I've just got to give you one of these. Well, you're serving this, you may as well read it. Do I get a schmacko for today for being a good citizen?
Watch them run away in shame.
Which channel are you from?
Enjoy your day, mate.
Boom! Thank you very much. We are back broadcasting live from the Russian consulate for many, many days now, 520 days or maybe 15 days. Can't remember exactly. Contrary to popular opinion and suspicion, I don't keep count. But if you want to keep count, you're in the right place because we've been broadcasting here for how many now weeks in a row, and we're still going strong. And of course, today is Easter Sunday. It's Pascha. Christ is risen. Christos Voskresie. We are celebrating along with the rest of the Orthodox Christian world who are on the correct calendar, the old calendar. And it's great to see in the comment section, everybody here. All of these great people. Look at that, how many Orthodox people are actually subscribers to this channel. It's quite impressive. Big hello to Emily Lightfoot and everyone, wherever you may be watching from. Let me know where you're watching from, in what location around Australia or overseas. As usual, we probably have a very, very large international audience. Plenty of news tonight, including the latest from the Pascha Easter celebrations in Moscow, where President Vladimir Putin attended the Pascha service, Easter service in Moscow's Christ the Savior Cathedral Church. We'll be joined in a couple of minutes joined by Father Alexander Parmonov from the Gold Coast here in Australia, where there were also Orthodox Christian services all around Australia. There's about 40 Orthodox Russian churches in Australia, and then there's a handful as well of other Orthodox denominations. The Serbians are with us, a few others. Some of the Greeks are, but some of the Greeks are on the new calendar. I don't know what went wrong there, but the Greeks should be on the old calendar. And we'll be joined also by Derek, who's a theologian. He's from the Western calendar, but he's very sympathetic to the Russian side. Now, this is happening right now in Moscow just a few hours ago. potential risk of being bombarded or shot at. So it is terrible that the Ukrainians don't respect any type of Orthodox feast days, and I've been informed that they are committing atrocities, attacking, shelling people on the front lines, even as they go to church. So there's nothing holy for the Zelensky government, unfortunately. But Vladimir Putin attended church at the Central Russian Church in Moscow, and that's the Holy Christ the Savior. You can see the Russian patriarch, and Vladimir Putin was standing next to the mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin. High security at that church in Moscow. Well, what a great leader Vladimir Putin is. He's one of the last remaining Christian leaders in the world. And it's good that we have Vladimir Putin, who defends Christianity and who stands up for Christian values, and he's not ashamed of that. He's not embarrassed, and he's not shy to. Right? When is the last time you saw a Western leader be so outwardly Christian and support Christianity? It's very good that Vladimir Putin does that, and he's winning the hearts and minds of many people around the world at the moment. We know that his inauguration is coming. We'll talk about that later. But right now, we're going to cross live to the Gold Coast right here in Australia, where Orthodox Easter has been celebrated on the Gold Coast, and we're joined by Father Alexander Paramonov. Father Alexander, welcome.
Greetings to everybody.
Christos Воскресе.
As you can see, we're driving at the moment because we're going to another service with many parishes combined.
Father Alexander, you've just finished the service this morning. What time did the service finish?
Well, I think we finished about 2:30, I heard. That's the rumor.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on the feast day. Congratulations on Holy Pascha. Tell us a little about your parish for those people interested in Australia, as we have a predominantly Orthodox audience in Australia. Sorry, Australian audience in Australia, but potentially Orthodox. You know, I get messages all the time and emails of people who are interested in the Orthodox faith, in Christianity. And many of these people are former Catholics or former Protestants or former other denominations who are attracted to the strictness of the Orthodox faith. What's your message for those people who are wondering and are interested in Orthodoxy?
Yeah, we always get people reaching out to us. Some people are understanding that not having, basically searching for more in this life. There's a lot of distractions, and doesn't matter what people think they need to achieve, whether it's success in life or business or accomplishments. It still leaves people unsatisfied, and so when they start feeling they need something more, their soul is yearning for God as the creator. A lot of times through their research, we've got people that are Catholics that have come to the Orthodox Church that are just Australians. We have very mixed, it's under the jurisdiction of the Russian Orthodox Church, but the parish on the Gold Coast and down at Tweed is one of the newer churches in Australia. In fact, we've got a project to build a brand new church at the moment, so it's just a temporary one. But the point is, people reaching out. Of course, there's Ukrainians and Russians and all kinds of denominations, Australians, Americans, doesn't really matter. Christianity is not denominational, it's not nationalistic, and it's important that everybody, doesn't matter if you're Christian or not, it's undeniable the impact of the birth of Jesus, and even furthermore the resurrection. The only person ever in the history of the world who has been arrested and tortured and died and crucified a gruesome death to then resurrect from the dead. Before that never happened, after that it's never happened, never will happen. And so it's very significant that everyone having a fear of death no longer has to, because Christ trampled down death by death, as I say, in the Tripar of Holy Easter or Holy Pascha. And we've got just a small parish where we try and serve every Saturday and Sunday, and people find us all the time and reach out from the internet. They just do Russian Orthodox Church on the Gold Coast. Can't get any simpler than that.
Fantastic, Father Alexander. Well, you're on the way to your next service with your family there. It's great to have you join us live from the Gold Coast. We've just finished the Orthodox Easter service. For those people wanting to reach your parish or visit your parish, where can they find you?
Well, I suggest everyone just Google Russian Orthodox Church, Gold Coast, and they'll see it's dedicated to the Russian Saint Xenia. And please reach out. You know, Easter has been preparation during the Great Lent for 40 days. Of course, Easter Sunday is today, but Easter itself goes for 40 days. So come, we'll look after you. Come reach out to the church, contact me, and I'll help you any way I possibly can. So God bless you all. Christos Voskreси. Happy Easter. Christ is risen. Christos Anesti.
Truly, he is risen. Thank you, Father Alexander. Well, there you go. If you're wondering about Orthodoxy in the Gold Coast, you have a person to visit. But preparations in Moscow are underway now for the inauguration of Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. There you go. That's in Moscow right now. They are preparing for the Russian president's inauguration. The presidential inauguration will take place on the 7th of May in less than 48 hours. And of course, we will bring you that coverage on the Aussie Cossack Show. So stay tuned. You can watch it right here. Vladimir Putin's inauguration in Moscow. Those scenes there of the Russian presidential guard preparing in the Kremlin in the center of Moscow, quite reminiscent of the scenes, if you've seen the movie, the Barber of Siberia, Sibirsky Tirulnik, very similar scenes. And many people are saying, well, Vladimir Putin, is that the inauguration of the Tsar? I certainly hope he becomes a Russian Tsar. I don't see why not. Why doesn't Russia just become an empire? Why doesn't the president just become a Tsar? We don't need elections. We all know the result. It's going to be 80% or 90% in favor of Putin. The elections that we do have are a Western concept. It's a concept that was forced onto Russia in the 1990s. Do we need elections? I mean, who were they for in the 90s? They were for the West, to show Russia, to show the West, the rest of the world, that Russia is becoming like the West. But I don't know about you in the comment section. Let me know what you think. But I certainly think that we need Putin to become an emperor, or somebody to become an emperor, and for Russia to become great again and to become an empire. And, you know, it's on the way to becoming an empire. We're slowly absorbing the territories that formerly and rightfully belong to Russia. And as we can see in Ukraine, the persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Russian-speaking population of Ukraine, continues. And that's why on the 7th of May, there will be Putin's inauguration. Tune in right here on the Aussie Cossack Show, because we'll bring the live footage. And in terms of that inauguration, in Australia at that time, we're going to have a convoy in Sydney on the 7th of May. We're celebrating the inauguration of President Putin in Sydney, and we're also celebrating Victory Day, the 9th of May. So we'll do it on the 7th. And the convoy will start from the Russian consulate in Sydney, and we'll go drive around through the eastern suburbs of Sydney, down to Bondi Beach with your Russian flags, your Zeds. Now, police can try and stop us from having a unsecured load or a protruding object from the car. I don't know why they're trying to arrest us for having Russian flags. If it was the Sydney Swans or the Canterbury Bulldogs playing down the road at the stadium and there was thousands of cars with flags, no one would say a word. But when they see Russian flags, they try to say something to us. So come on down, and the best way to get around the flag ban, as the police would try to ban you, is to just get electric tape and put a Z on the side of your car. A Z with electric tape. If you've got a dark car, put a white Z. If you've got a light car, put a dark Z. And you can't forbid a Z. Well, it's not a traffic hazard at all. So that'll be happening on the 7th of May. And speaking of cars, Australian Bushmasters are on display in Moscow, causing quite a lot of controversy. Very uncomfortable for Albanese.
I said to speak my language. He just smiled and gave me coming to my subway. And he said, I come from the land of where you go and where you die. Can we keep it in the thunder? You better run, you better lay down.
There you go, the convoy, 7th of May. I highly suggest if you're in Sydney, come on down and join. And in fact, there's not going to be many people because it's a weekday, it's 2 p.m. But what we can expect is to see some of the Patriots rock up there. Now, Sky News has been at it again, and Chris Ullman having another attack of the Aussie Cossack. Check this out. This is early this week.
I were discussing before we came onto air one particular case of an individual online. He calls himself the Aussie Cossack, but basically a Putin propagandist.
Yep.
And he is domiciled in the Russian consulate right now.
In Sydney, hiding from the police.
Hiding from the police and just throwing out misinformation.
Yeah, and think about this. So that on the night of the Bondi stabbing, this guy, Simeon, who goes by the name, his Twitter handle is Aussie Cossack, is sitting, hiding from the police on an assault charge in the Russian consulate in Sydney, when at around about 11 p.m, he puts out a tweet, retweeting that it was an anti-Semitic tweet. It was deliberate. He got 400,000 views of that, and that rolls on to the point where Channel 7 rebroadcasts it. Now, that is an act of information warfare. It must be at least condoned by the Russian government, otherwise they would punt him into the street. You honestly believe that they don't know what he's doing in there, and this is the insidious thing.
So should our authorities just let this slide, or how do they respond? How should they respond to that?
Well, look, I'm going to ask that question today. I've got the opportunity to see what they think about Simeon Boykov, see if they do think that this is an act of aggression by a foreign country. And if it is, it is essentially an act of information warfare. It's designed to divide our community. There should be some repercussions for that. At least the Russian government should be surely called to account, maybe ask them to punt him into the street and you can deal with the New South Wales police on his assault charge, and perhaps there's a case for a foreign interference charge against the man as well.
It's not just this individual, Simeon Boykov. There were other Twitter handles with less than 100 followers putting out this terrible information, misinformation about the young Jewish man, and then it gradually snowballed, and then this other person with a bigger profile, the Aussie Cossack, puts it out there and it gets global traction.
Yeah. And I was in Ukraine last year and spoke to the president there and to people around him. And a big part of what's going on there is information warfare. And when we talk about the defence of this country, for example, I think we talk too much about subs and planes. We need to start talking about the war that is actually raging right now inside our borders, about what we're seeing in an information war. And I think if there is an information war raging at the moment.
There you go, the Sky News agents of, what do we call them, Zionism, I suppose. Why they keep carrying on about anti-Semitism? Where have I said anything anti-Semitic? You saw that report there from Sky News, Chris Ullman, and he's carrying on like a broken record. Now he wants me to be charged with foreign interference or foreign influence, and he's demanding that. let's be fair. Let's charge everybody with foreign interference and foreign influence in Canberra who has been influenced by Israel and the United States. Let's start with that. If you want to talk about foreign interference, foreign influence, be my guest. We'll see how much interference in Australian politics in Australia there is from the US and from Israel. So very dangerous path to go down there, Sky News and Chris Ullman. If you want to talk about that, have you noticed the rhetoric, the claims of anti-Semitism everywhere, and they want to bring in new laws in the United States, anti-Semitism. Again, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the Gazans, it's the Palestinians who are getting smashed and getting genocided. But all you hear from the media, especially the Murdoch media, especially this Sky News, is playing the victim card. We know who always traditionally for the last few thousands of years loves to play the victim card. People in the comment section are saying that Sky News is full of sanctimonious dropkicks. There's a mouthful for you. And I mean, at the end of the day, people see what is going on. The only information war that is going on is the disinformation that is being spread by the mainstream media. There you go. Chuck Stone is an old viewer. Ullman knows who you are, Cossack, and he will be taking action against you. That's a quote from Sergeant Kingston from back in the days. Yeah, there was a incident the other day, and I'm not going to even play the video, but Avi Emini and his security guard in Melbourne at a protest actually pushed somebody, right? Saying it was self-defense in front of the police. No problems with that. So how come when I get attacked, right, by a Ukrainian supporter while I'm live streaming, doing really the same thing, right, I push somebody away and I'm now wanted by the police and it's all over the media that I'm wanted for assault. Avi Emini and his security guard, they push somebody away, a Palestinian, nothing happens. Very interesting. Nothing happens at all. Are you part of the foreign influence? Let me know in the comment section. Is there a problem with just influence? I mean, I admit that I have probably influence, right? And I think no one can deny that. But is it foreign? That's the question. Do you really think Vladimir Putin sitting there in the Kremlin, calling me every morning, giving me instructions on what to say next or what to publish next? I highly doubt that. I'm sure Vladimir Putin and Russia have better things to do. In fact, I can tell you honestly, I don't even talk to the Russian ambassador in Australia. In fact, I don't even talk to the Russian general consul, and I live in the same building as him. That is how detached I am from you could say the official Russian authorities. I'm a step away, and I'm clearly separate, right? Everything I say, think, and do, even though I'm inside the Russian consulate, is purely my own opinion, and I'm pretty sure the Australian side knows that. Now let's have a look at what's doing the rounds in the news. The story of Adrian McRae, the besieged Western Australian councillor who has become an internet favourite, a people's favourite, making headlines, front page news, all of the major networks, 10, 7, Channel 9, ABC, have all attacked him as much as possible. There was a vote of no confidence. If you've been following this story, it's been raging since March, since Adrian McRae travelled to Moscow as an official observer for the Russian elections. Now, Adrian McRae has fought off a successful attempt to overthrow him, or to give a vote of no confidence at least, by Mayor Peter Carter. And this is the news that is hitting the headlines. These headlines: council under the pump as state steps in. Look at that. Adrian McRae on the front page. Council under the pump. Putin fan survives vote. What an outrageous headline. Putin fan survives vote. Written by a lady called Katya Mins. And I'm not sure where that name comes from. Katya sounds like a Russian name. Could be Ukrainian. That would explain why Adrian's being attacked. That was published in the Northwest Telegraph. And they're having a go at Adrian. But look, Adrian McRae is right up there being displayed in the media with photos of Vladimir Putin. I don't think it's such a bad thing. What a great thing. And the Northwest Telegraph claims that 407 people were watching the live stream of the council meeting. That's on the council meeting's website. But as you guys know, if you've been watching for a few weeks now in a row, we live streamed that council meeting ourselves on the Aussie Cossack Show. And there was, of course, thousands and thousands watching. Probably the most watched council meeting in Australia's recent history. In the small little town of Port Hedland with only 15,000 people, has become the centre of international focus and national focus. But congratulations to Adrian McRae, having survived the vote of no confidence. The media still can't forgive him for it. And it's been now 6 weeks and he's still making front page news. Well, he must be doing something right. People are saying in the comment section that Adrian McRae needs to be made the new Prime Minister or a Senator or something at least. It would be a great thing. Jenny Lynn, misinformation, Putin, anti-Semitism, Hamas, terrorism, foreign agent, disinformation, blah, blah, blah. It's the same tune, the same narrative that they apply to anything that they don't like, to anything or anyone that disagrees with their narrative. What can you do? You can keep fighting. That's what you can do. And you can like and subscribe and share and keep watching the Aussie Cossack Show. That's a good start. But there are so many things happening now in Australia. Of course, today being the 5th of May, we're only a couple of days out from the 9th of May, the Russian Victory Day Parade. And we'll bring you some coverage of that as well. If you're not already subscribed to Aussie Cossack on Telegram, I highly suggest you do. You'll get the news before it's mainstream media, and you'll get the real news. I mean, they carry on that Aussie Cossacks has made misinformation when we published unconfirmed reports, or we talked about these reports as being unconfirmed. That's not misinformation. That's pointing out something as unconfirmed. And how come they've only started that now? When we've been broadcasting for years, we've had something like 27,000 posts, right? They've never said misinformation before that. Are they supposed to admit that everything we said before, mentioning the unconfirmed reports on Channel 7, was true? Well, it's been a bit of a trend, this whole let's accuse people of misinformation, disinformation, let's accuse citizen journalists and social media users of disinformation. Well, the media itself is not accountable for what they've been doing, to the point where today all over Australia, Melbourne, Brisbane, Mackay, Cairns, Perth, all over the place, there were rallies against the government censorship, against the government's plans to impose a digital ID. And the scene outside Parliament House in Melbourne today was an interesting scene that people were protesting against censorship and digital ID. There were even a few Russian flags in the crowd, which you can have a look and spot for yourself now.
How much Caracas City felt like Melbourne. And it makes sense that it does, because actually it was an incredibly wealthy city at the same time that Melbourne became incredibly wealthy thanks to the gold rush. They had a rubber boom and a tourism boom and other reasons why they became wealthy. But Venezuela was in the top 10 wealthiest countries on earth. And at that time, around about the turn of last century.
There you go. People in Melbourne protesting, people in Sydney protesting. Reliably informed that even though it was pretty rainy weather today, and it's been raining, for 2 or 3 weeks in Sydney now, people still took to the streets and attended that rally against the digital ID, which the government seeks to impose. There you go. How much disinformation, how much misinformation has the mainstream media published over the last few years? I mean, we've got now AstraZeneca, and I know we're broadcasting on YouTube through DD Geopolitics, but let's just face it, AstraZeneca itself is admitting that their jabs cause blood clots. They're saying that themselves now. This is the stuff that we were saying, and we were being deplatformed and demonetized and banned and censored. All of us, all of you watching, probably had those situations. We had accounts suspended and so forth, just because you were speaking up and questioning the government's health policies, questioning Big Pharma. And that was illegal, literally illegal. Literally, people went to jail for protesting against what the government was doing and forcing these jabs on us, right? And turns out we were right. When is the day of sorry going to come? When is the day of recognition that the government was wrong, right? We held the line. We fought back. We fought hard. Well, we did our best to warn as many people as possible, didn't we? We warned friends, family. We warned everyone on social media. Don't get the jab. We were right. AstraZeneca itself now is saying that their jab caused blood clots and all these health complications. What a disgraceful situation. And the government still thinks it can point the finger at us and say, we're spreading disinformation. We're spreading misinformation. Because what? Because what? We said something was unconfirmed. Exactly. In the comment section, people are 100%. Where's their cancer causing, in fact? There you go. I don't know. Can we even talk about that yet? This is how bad it is in Australia, that we know it's all happening. The government is paying millions and millions of dollars in compensation to the victims who got injuries from these jabs. But are we allowed to talk about it? We're still not allowed to talk about it. Now, if you want to talk about misinformation, that's where you've got to start, right? I'll be the first to put my hand up and say sometimes I get something wrong. Sometimes I share an unconfirmed report, but at least I label it as unconfirmed. If the government is going to put their hand up and say that they were wrong, but if the government says they were wrong, imagine all of the compensation they'll have to pay out. Imagine all the people who are arrested. Imagine the government admitting that the protesters were correct, that we were right, that the citizen journalists and the independent journalists and the social media users and the thousands of you out there who are sharing information contrary to the government narrative, it turns out we were on the right side of history. And that's what we're waiting for the government to admit. Will that come? I don't know. In the comment section, people are saying they haven't watched the mainstream media in years. Frank, congratulations. You're a pureblood, jab-free and healthy. Isn't it great to be jab-free? It's terrible that people in Australia, just think about it, how many hundreds of thousands are injured or killed as a result of the government's deliberate misinformation campaign. That's what it is. That's what they did. And they have the gall to point the finger at us, and rather than take responsibility, they want to put more restrictions on us, to punish the people more, even though it's them who were wrong. There you go. We've got Jenny Lynn. She's saying she was one of them. And look, it's very sad. Many people were forced and coerced into getting the jab. Look, my own wife would have got it. She told me, she goes, I would have got it, but you stopped me. I stopped her, yeah. What do you want to call that? Is that coercive control? When a husband stops his wife from getting the jab? The government would tell you it's coercive control. The government would say she needs an AVO against him, all right? That's what our government does. So at the end of the day, I don't blame anyone who got the jab, because a lot of people, especially I know in the construction industry, and at that time I ran a lay-by hire company with about 80 blokes on the books, and a lot of the boys wanted to get the jab just to work, just to feed their families, because they were restricted otherwise. And that's where the government really does have blood on its hands. I See Nothing says, if misinformation is a problem, just silence all government spokespeople. I mean, exactly right. How much misinformation did Gladys Berejiklian spread? How much misinformation did Brad Hazard spread? Did Dan Andrews spread? Right? They will not be punished for that. Yet people like Chris Ullman from Sky News want 20 years jail for Aussie Cossack for foreign interference or foreign influence. Well, I'm sorry. AstraZeneca's a foreign company. Pfizer's a foreign company. Moderna's a foreign company. Wouldn't that be foreign interference? Wouldn't that be foreign influence? If we're going to call a spade, if you're acting on behalf of a foreign agent, you're acting on behalf of a foreign company, and you haven't declared that, and you're doing their bidding, and you're in power, and you're a minister or a health minister or a police minister or even a prime minister, as Scott Morrison and Albanese were, and you're pumping and pushing the propaganda and foreign interference on behalf of Big Pharma. Let's call a spade. And Jenny Lynn says, technically, they said we didn't force you. Well, technically, ScoMo said we didn't force you, but I did do everything possible. Just think back to when we were not even allowed to eat outside or drink outside or look at the sunset or walk around near our own houses. Terrible. Troy's one of the clever ones. He left Australia in 2021, so he didn't get it and lived overseas. Congratulations. George was kicked out of the SES. Fancy being an SES worker, saving people's lives, right? You've got floods and bushfires. The SES is coming to save you. And he was stopped and banned from working, from saving people, because he didn't have a jab. I mean, if my house is burning down or my house is being flooded, I don't care if the SES worker is jabbed or not. I couldn't care less. I'll be happy to see him and happy to say, thanks for coming to help. Right? Isn't that logical? Well, unfortunately, the government is taking orders from the corporations, as Sam says. Sam, get off Facebook and join a decent platform like Telegram or X. But great to hear your opinion. And it's definitely taking orders from the elites, as Sam Viros says. At the end of the day, the government are the ones who have a guilty conscience. They're the ones who have to worry about the future, about Nuremberg 2. And speaking of Nuremberg 2, Zelensky and Petro Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine, has just been added to Russia's wanted list. The Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs have declared them to be wanted. That's interesting timing. Why would they do that now? Because we know Zelensky missed his elections. He cancelled elections in his country, which means that from one perspective, you could say he's an illegitimate president. He wasn't elected. He's finished his term and he's still in power. How is that not a dictatorship? Because he knows if he has elections, he'll be voted out. Of course, meanwhile in Russia, they had elections. Vladimir Putin got an excellent result. And we're celebrating that result on the 7th of May with his inauguration. So outside the Russian consulate, we're going to have a convoy of cars, Z cars, our volunteers, our locals. Shout out to all of our volunteers who are coming down that day. I'll bring you that coverage and footage on the Aussie Cossack Show. So stay tuned. There's one person which has a strong opinion on all of this, all that we've talked about so far on the show tonight. His name is Derek. They call him Derek for Truth. His nickname is, and Derek's joining us now from New South Wales. Derek, welcome to the Aussie Cossack Show. Derek's going to have
to... just qualification, I have to say, I'm a lay theologian. I'm not properly trained, but I love God and I love the truth. And I was a sinner just like everybody else and a Protestant until I was 55. And I gave up the world and I tried to perfect myself for heaven. And I found out that the Anglican religion was actually a false religion. So I looked for what was the religion that God gave us when he dwelt amongst us in 33 AD. And I found that it was a Catholic religion. So I started studying the Catholic religion, theology, because I wanted to get all the Protestant heresies out of my head. Of course, I knew that the Catholic Church is also perverted since 1958. So you can call me a traditional Catholic, a pre-Vatican II Catholic. But I'm not properly trained. So
well, Derek, why don't you just become Orthodox?
Well, I mean, that's on the cards because I'm seriously looking at having to leave Australia. I mean, we can't live here the way it's going. It's becoming a totalitarian state. And with the, with the WHO treaty coming up for the pandemic, we won't have a choice about being jabbed. They'll just hold you down and jab you. With the e-safety thing coming up, that's 100% censorship. It's
the e-safety commissioner, Karen. Yes, she wants to take us all down. Why doesn't the e-safety commissioner start with the government for spreading misinformation during the pandemic? That's a good question.
Yeah, but the thing maybe people don't understand is that it's planned. It's censorship. It's hardcore censorship. They were censoring it during the pandemic and asking, Facebook to take all the information that was against the narrative down. They were holding the narrative. It's not an accident. It's a purposeful thing. And that was just a test run. The big first run is coming up with the pandemic. Watch Bill Gates and his madness, George Soros and all of that. It's about depopulating the world. And we should, really understand that they're actually trying to kill us. They're not there to help us. They're actually trying to kill us. See, the thing is that we've changed from being a democracy. I'm not saying democracy works, but I'm saying what democracy is supposed to be is that the people have the power and the people elect the government. But what is happening now is that the government is in control and they're controlling the people. No one asked us if we want censorship. No one asked us if we want to go to war with Russia in Ukraine. So we are getting a lot of decisions made by the government, and the government's controlling the people. We've lost that democratic power of not only free speech, but actually the people, the grassroots people controlling the government. We have the government controlling the people. So what we have is basically a totalitarian government. And now that they're doing the narrative, now that they're controlling the narrative with the safety commissioner, what you're going to get is pure fascism. You won't get anything other than the narrative. It'll be what we accused Russia of being during the Cold War. I'm not saying it actually happened, but we accuse them of running, a narrative, and everybody's brainwashed. Well, actually, sorry to say, everybody in the West is brainwashed because we've had 100 years of propaganda. It's not just the propaganda started with the, Ukrainian war. It's actually started as far as I know, it started in about 1911. I mean, I stopped watching TV in 1984, and the reason for that was because I could see that it was propaganda. They were doing horrible things. Agent Orange in Vietnam, napalm, and then we started finding out information about what the Second World War was actually about. But if you watch the propaganda machine, the TV set in your living room, what that's telling you about is that everything in the West is good, everything in the East is bad, and here's a justification for war. It's terrible. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, Derek, you're spot on there. I can't say I disagree with anything that you've said there, and the people in the comment section are very in agreement with what you're saying. So you haven't watched TV since 1984. How long have you been in Australia?
40 years, since 1984. I had TV when I lived in Canada, but when I came to Australia, I knocked it off. I actually threw it out the window.
There you go.
The Australian, I mean, I was new here. I had a good job. The company sent me over here on a 2-year contract. And I was in a, service department with everything, properly done. And I turned on the TV because I had lots of time. I was getting organized.
Derek, in the comment section, people are saying that they've seen hundreds of videos about families from all over the world, from the West, moving to Russia to get away from all this madness.
Yeah.
What do you think of people from the West moving to Russia? It's a bit of a trend these days. A lot of people are.
I think it's actually natural because we can't live here. I mean, I love Australia. I don't want to leave Australia. I've gotten a lot from Australia. I've contributed to society a lot. I've been in the fire brigade. I've been in various things, but I can't live like this. I can't live with the suppression of truth. That's the problem that's happening. The narrative is a suppression of truth. It looks on the surface like it's a suppression of religion, and it is, right? I mean, look at what they're doing to the church. Look at how they took away Calvary Hospital. That's all illegal. And the first thing they did was take the cross off the top of the building. So we know we're going satanic in the West. It's not just religion. It's actually just a suppression of truth. I mean, look at what's happening in Palestine. We have the most horrific genocide in the history of mankind. It's worse than the Holocaust. So here we have the people who suffered under the Holocaust, who should know better, committing the world's worst genocide. It's not just starting in the 7th of October, just like the Ukraine war didn't start in 2022. The Ukraine war started in 1991, as far as I'm concerned, right? The genocide in Palestine started in 1947. I'm not saying that it's fair that the British gave the Jews Israel. I'm not saying that's fair, but at least it was legal. And in 1947, the UN General Assembly actually made a resolution for a 2-state solution, right? And that was ratified again after the 1967 war, and again in 1973. So the United Nations have decided the only way that Palestine can last is to have a 2-state solution, because you've imported these Jews from all over the world and they're making a new state. Well, what the Jews have done is they've implemented their half. They've implemented the Jewish part where the Jewish state exists and has power, but they haven't implemented the second half, which is the Palestinian state. So what we have now is an apartheid state where Palestinian people, in fact all Arabs, don't have any rights at all. They're servile to the Jews. And that's the only way the Jews can survive. I mean, it's very sad that they have to have this position of superiority over people in order to even exist. It's the same thing that happened in South Africa. I don't know if you remember, but it used to be an apartheid state and horrible things are happening, about Nelson Mandela and all that. So when they finally got free of that, the first thing that happened was the Jews left South Africa. They're all in, St. Ives and in Toronto, Canada.
I mean, the latest trend in the Australian media is to say that anything supporting Palestine, anything like that, is straight away anti-Semitism. So what you're saying now, do you think that could be interpreted as anti-Semitism? And what do you think of this push from the media of using that anti-Semitic?
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. Because the problem is the label, right? You have to understand that the label anti-Semitic is a political label and it's an instrument of control. I'll give you an example. Look at the word homophobic. It's complete nonsense. Phobic means an irrational fear. It doesn't mean fear. It means an irrational fear, right? As in agoraphobia means an irrational fear of open spaces. I don't have any fear of homosexuals. I just reject them. So homophobic is a word that they have coined to make it look like I have some kind of mental illness if I don't accept homosexuality, right? It's a complete device. So I refuse to be called homosexual. I'm homophobic. I'm just natural, and I reject homosexuality. See, the thing is, they can't. What's the purpose of society? The purpose of society is to produce the next generation, right? Not just produce the next generation, but produce a healthy next generation that'll survive. That means healthy in mind, healthy in body, and healthy in spirit. Well, sorry, but the homosexuals can't have children. They can have other people's children, but they can't have their own children. So why is it that we have this small group of people who can't have children telling a human society that can have children how to have children and what is good for them, and that they should look into being drag queens and, you know, various genders and all that? It's completely unnatural. What we have is a tiny minority controlling the majority, and the majority is trying to stay sane, and the minority is insane, already insane, driving them nuts. Now look at the problem with the word anti-Semitic. What we have is a small group of people controlling all of the Western countries through their economies and various secret societies. And they're telling us that if we disagree with anything that they do, we are anti-Semitic. The problem is the truth is anti-Semitic. If you look at objectively what's happening in Gaza right now, where they're finding mass graves of 400 and 300 people, you know, who have been tortured and raped and killed with their hands behind their back. These are massive war crimes. These are worse than the war crimes of the Holocaust. At least we have evidence. The Holocaust has very little evidence, but here we have lots of evidence. You know, when we look at the genocide of the Gaza, it's not Gaza, it's genocide for 70 years, starting from 1947. What you're seeing now is an open concentration camp where the population of Palestine has been reduced to 2.2 million people. And this is the last chapter. This is killing off the last of the Palestinians so that the Jews can take over all of Palestine. You know, it's starving them. It's killing them in hospitals. It's telling them to go to safe places in hospitals and then purposely bombing the hospitals. You know, Ukraine was doing that in Kramatorsk last year. So what we have is a purposeful genocide. What we have is the person who's doing the perpetration of all these horrible crimes is actually saying they're a victim. So they're not a victim, they're a perpetrator. The term, if you look at the term genocide, that's the definition of genocide. Even the UN have come out and said it's genocide. The ICC have come out and said it's genocide. So it's objectively genocide. If the response to that is that the truth, the objective truth is genocide, then the problem is with the label. It's the label of anti-Semitic that's the problem. It's not the truth, because the truth is that there is genocide in Palestine. There is genocide of the Russian people in Ukraine. And that's what we have to deal with. And we can't deal with it because we've got, you know, every propaganda channel hammering us, telling us the one narrative. And for shows like this, they're going to censor everything so that we don't have a choice. We don't get access to the truth. We live in a bubble that is controlled by the narrative. So I love the Jews. I mean, I've got a few friends who are Jews, but they won't do anything to, you know, deal with the Jewish problem. What they do is they say, no, you can't say anything bad about the Jews. Well, I'm not saying anything bad about the Jews. I'm just asserting the truth. And the problem is the truth is anti-Semitic, with, you know, the same double quotes that we have for homophobic or transphobic. It's insane. So if you want to stay sane, you've got to be very attached to the truth, right? I mean, one basic definition, theological definition of sanity is that your mind conforms to the objective truth, to reality. So when your mind doesn't conform, you're rejecting objective reality. That's the first crime. All crimes are twofold, right? That's the first crime. And then you create this fantasy of, well, the Jews are the chosen people. Right. After they killed God, they're the chosen people. No. They were the chosen people in the Old Covenant. No question about it. Even Catholicism is founded on Judaism. It's a beautiful religion. But it became obsolete with Christ and Christianity. So you can't actually physically practice Judaism. There is no temple. There is no second temple. They're required to have a sacrifice every single day in the temple in Jerusalem. That's not possible. You have to have the Aaronic priesthood. Well, the Romans were very clear when they destroyed Jerusalem to make sure that they destroyed the priesthood, because they wanted to make sure the Jews didn't have their religion because of all the rebellion and filth that they were doing. Look at what happened in Carthage. So it's physically impossible to practice Judaism. Second, it is spiritually impossible, because if you believe in God, well, you have to believe in Jesus Christ. You can't reject Jesus Christ. I mean, these are Christ's own words. He said, when you reject me, you reject the Father that sent me, right? So you can't physically say that the Jews reject Jesus Christ, but they still have access to God. No, they've rejected both. I mean, if they were the chosen people, would they be doing these horrible things in Palestine? Would they be doing these horrible things with Pfizer and Moderna and trying to, kill us all? No, I don't think they're the chosen people. After they killed Christ, they're the cursed people. Read Matthew 23. It's a short chapter, and it tells you exactly what God thinks about the Jews. They're cursed to wander the world without a home until the second coming. They use the Protestants have been perverted for a long time, right? So they're not using our Bible. They're not using the Bible that we've had for 2,000 years. They're using a Bible that the Jews created. It's called the Hebrew Bible. That's why the Catholic Bible is so different from the Protestant Bibles. And once you move away from the truth, for any proposition, there's only one answer that's true, right? 2 + 2 = 4, right? But once you move away from that truth, there's no limit to the number of falsities you can have. 2 + 2 = 52, 2 + 2 = 7, 2 + 2 = 16. And they argue amongst each other. That's the problem, right? So you've got like 130 Protestant Bibles, all based on Martin Luther taking the Hebrew Bible, which is a 9th century aberration. It's a reinterpretation of the old Torah. The Torah has got nothing wrong with it. It's our Old Testament. But they've reinterpreted it. And so now there's 130 versions of this reinterpretation. And the latest one is called the Schofield Bible. In it, they talk about the Jews having 1,000 years of rapture. And that in it, guess what? The Jews are going to have a special place, and we're going to be slaves to the Jews. It's exactly the same thing that the Jews were wanting in the time of Christ. And it's exactly why they killed him, right? The real reason that they killed Christ was that they wanted an earthly kingdom. Christ was offering a spiritual kingdom. He said to Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world. But they didn't do that. They wanted an earthly kingdom in which they had superiority over the other races, and they had power and wealth. That's what they wanted. That's what they're doing now. That's all of what the Jews have done since Christ, right? I mean, why are they called the enemies of Christ since the crucifixion? Because Christ is truth. That's the bottom line. And so if you understand that this business about truth and, anti-Semitism started with the crucifixion. When they rejected Christ, they rejected truth. Christ was the original anti-Semite.
So many sound bites that I'm sure the media will take out of context and try to spin and flip. I'm sure the media will end up accusing the Bible of being anti-Semitic. But
the Bible is anti-Semitic. The Bible is absolutely anti-Semitic.
There you go. Derek reckons the Bible is anti-Semitic. I could just imagine the headlines in the media tomorrow after tonight's interview. Very controversial, but Derek's able to have his say on the Aussie Cossack channel. And we thank you for joining us, guys. We've got the Russian Victory Parade coming up in less than a couple of days. We've got only 4 days to go. The preparations on Moscow's Red Square are in full swing. The military are practicing the parade on the Red Square. There was some speculation and some rumors that the parade would be cancelled, but no, the military parade for the 9th of May for Victory Day is going ahead. And right now, in fact, as we speak, the troops are practicing. There you go. Lovely scenes from Moscow as Russia gets ready for the military parade for the 9th of May. But tune in on the 9th of May. It'll be at about 5 p.m. Sydney time, 10 a.m. Moscow time. We'll be live streaming the Victory Day Parade. And we'll also be bringing you the coverage on the 7th of May of Vladimir Putin's inauguration on Tuesday at the Kremlin. That's going to be a very interesting sight to see. And expect a very grand and pompous ceremony fitting of the Russian Tsar, who really de facto, let's just face it, Vladimir Putin is basically the Russian Tsar. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us on tonight's show dedicated to the latest news. And of course, today, Easter Sunday, Pascha for the Orthodox Christians. Probably the media is going to say that everything we've said tonight is anti-Semitism, but you would struggle to find the anti-Semitic quote from me. And like I say always to the media, we're not the anti-Semites because we are against the Nazis. The Russians are fighting the Nazis, right? And the Israelis should appreciate that who fought and defeated the Nazis. Of course, it was the majority of the German Nazis were defeated. 80% of them were defeated by Russian forces. Some may argue that the Nazis and the Zionists today of 2024 are on the same team, and that's a separate issue. I can see people in the comment section are agreeing with that, and I'll leave it that. I'll leave it there on that note before we get thrown off this platform for having such a controversial conversation. But thanks to all our guests, thanks to Father Alexander Paramolov, thanks to Derek from New South Wales, and thanks to everyone for tuning in and watching. I'll see you very shortly in about 48 hours' time for Vladimir Putin's inauguration. We'll be going live then. Make sure you watch on X, on YouTube, on Rumble, and on other platforms which are still not censored. Thank you very much. And Christ is risen.